The morning sun blazed across the endless expanse of sand dunes in northern Iraq, casting long shadows that shifted like living creatures across the desert floor. Staff Sergeant Maria adjusted her suit and pressed deeper into her concealed position atop a rocky outcropping. The fabric, carefully woven with local vegetation and sand-colored netting, made her virtually invisible against the harsh landscape. She had been in position for 18 hours, waiting for her target to appear. Maria wasn't supposed to be here. According to the official records, she was back at Forward Operating Base Phoenix, running training exercises with the other members of the 75th Ranger Regiment. But 3 days ago, intelligence had intercepted communications about a high-value target meeting that could change the course of operations in the region. The meeting was scheduled to take place in a remote compound 15 kilometers from the nearest coalition forces. The brass had initially planned to send a full assault team, but Maria had convinced her commanding officer that a precision strike would be more effective. One shot, one kill, minimal collateral damage. She had earned her reputation as one of the most accurate snipers in the Rangers, with confirmed kills at distances exceeding 1,200 meters. Her rifle, a customized M24 sniper weapon system, had become an extension of herself over 3 tours of duty. As she lay motionless in the desert heat, Maria thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. Growing up in a small town in Texas, she had learned to shoot with her grandfather's old hunting rifle. By age 12, she could hit a target at 300 yards with iron sights. Her father, a Vietnam veteran, had been skeptical when she announced her intention to join the military, but he had never questioned her determination once he saw her commitment to excellence. The compound below remained quiet in the early morning hours. Through her scope, Maria could see guards patrolling the perimeter in predictable patterns. She had been studying their movements since before dawn, noting the timing of their rotations and identifying potential escape routes. Intelligence suggested that her target, a bomb maker responsible for dozens of coalition casualties, would arrive by vehicle sometime before noon. Maria's radio crackled softly in her earpiece. "Overwatch, this is base. Report status." She pressed the transmit button twice, a prearranged signal indicating her position was secure, and she remained undetected. Radio chatter was kept to an absolute minimum during operations like this. Even with encrypted communications, there was always the risk of detection. The heat was becoming oppressive as the sun climbed higher. Maria's body temperature regulation had been honed through years of training, but the desert environment tested even the most experienced operators. She sipped water sparingly from the hydration tube connected to her pack, knowing that she might be in position for many more hours. At 8:47 hours, a dust cloud appeared on the horizon. Maria focused her scope on the approaching vehicles, counting 3 pickup trucks moving in convoy formation. This matched the intelligence reports perfectly. She controlled her breathing, slowing her heart rate as she had been trained to do countless times before. The vehicles approached the compound and stopped at the main gate. Through her scope, Maria watched as several men emerged from the trucks. Her target, identified by a distinctive scar across his left cheek, stepped out of the middle vehicle and began walking toward the compound entrance. Maria calculated the distance at 847 meters, well within her effective range. The wind was minimal, a slight breeze from the southeast that would require only minor compensation. She adjusted her scope accordingly and began the methodical process of lining up her shot. Her finger moved to the trigger as she controlled her breathing. Inhale, exhale halfway, hold. The crosshairs settled on her target's center mass. The moment stretched like an eternity as training and instinct merged into a single point of focus. The shot rang out across the desert, echoing off the rocky hills like thunder. Through her scope, Maria saw her target fall instantly. The .308 caliber bullet had found its mark with lethal precision. Guards around the compound immediately began shouting and searching for the source of the gunfire. Maria was already moving before the sound of her shot had fully dissipated. She broke down her rifle with practiced efficiency, secured her equipment, and began her extraction route down the backside of the rocky outcropping. Speed and stealth were now equally important as confusion reigned in the compound below. The extraction point was 2 kilometers away, where a small depression in the landscape would provide concealment until the helicopter arrived. Maria moved through the terrain like a ghost, using every piece of cover available while maintaining a pace that would get her to safety before enemy forces could organize a search. Her radio crackled again. Overwatch, this is Eagle Flight. Confirmed target eliminated. Target down, Maria whispered into her microphone. Moving to extraction point Alpha. Copy that. Eagle Flight inbound, ETA 12 minutes. Maria reached the extraction point with 8 minutes to spare. She set up a defensive perimeter and activated her infrared beacon for the helicopter crew. The adrenaline was beginning to subside, replaced by the satisfaction of a mission successfully completed. The U-60 Black Hawk appeared on schedule, flying low across the desert floor to avoid detection. Maria gathered her equipment and prepared for immediate departure. As the helicopter settled into the landing zone, dust swirled around her like a miniature sandstorm. She climbed aboard the aircraft and strapped herself into the crew seat. The helicopter lifted off immediately, banking sharply toward friendly territory. Through the open door, Maria could see smoke rising from the compound where enemy forces were still searching for the sniper who had struck with such devastating precision. Back at Forward Operating Base Phoenix, Maria went through the standard post-mission debriefing with her commanding officer, Captain Williams. The mission had been classified at the highest levels, with only a handful of personnel aware of the true details. Officially, Maria had spent the day conducting equipment maintenance and training. Outstanding work out there, Captain Williams said as they concluded the briefing. Intelligence reports indicate that your target was planning a major operation against coalition forces next week. Your action likely saved dozens of lives. Maria nodded, understanding the weight of her actions. Every mission carried moral implications that extended far beyond the immediate tactical objectives. She had trained extensively not just in marksmanship, but in the ethical considerations that came with the power to take life at long range. As she cleaned and maintained her rifle that evening, Maria reflected on the day's events. The precision and timing required for such operations demanded absolute focus and preparation. There was no room for error when lives hung in the balance. What she didn't know was that her shot had been observed by more than just enemy forces at the compound. 12 kilometers to the north, a Navy SEAL reconnaissance team had been conducting their own surveillance mission when they heard the distinctive crack of a high-powered rifle echoing across the desert. Lieutenant Commander Jake lowered his binoculars and looked at his team members with confusion. According to their mission briefing, there were no friendly sniper teams operating in this area. All coalition forces were supposed to be accounted for, and none were authorized for offensive operations in this sector. "Did anyone else hear that shot?" asked his team through their internal communications. "Confirmed," replied Petty Officer First Class. "Single rifle shot, high caliber, approximately 12 clicks south-southeast." "Check with base command," ordered. "Find out if we have any friendlies in that area." The response came back negative. No coalition forces were supposed to be operating in that sector. The nearest friendly units were their own SEAL team and a Marine patrol that was 40 kilometers to the west. "Sir, we've got movement at the target compound," reported Chief Petty Officer Martinez, who was monitoring the area through a high-powered telescope. "Looks like someone just took out a high-value target down there. Guards are going crazy, searching everywhere." Felt a chill run down his spine. If there were no friendly forces in the area, then who had made that shot? The precision and timing suggested a highly trained sniper, but the lack of coordination with coalition command raised serious questions. "Pack it up," ordered. "We need to get back to base and report this immediately. Something doesn't add up here." As the SEAL team began their withdrawal from their observation post, couldn't shake the feeling that they had just witnessed something that wasn't supposed to exist. The shot had been too precise, too professional to be the work of insurgent forces. But if it wasn't insurgents and it wasn't coalition forces, then what were they dealing with? The Black Hawk carrying Maria back to base flew through the same airspace where the SEAL team was conducting their withdrawal. Neither group was aware of the other's presence, but their paths had crossed in a way that would soon create ripples throughout the Special Operations community. At Forward Operating Base Phoenix, Maria secured her equipment and submitted her after-action report. The mission would be classified and filed away, another successful operation in the ongoing fight against terrorism. She had no way of knowing that her perfectly executed shot had raised red flags throughout the intelligence community. His team reached their base 3 hours later and immediately began filing their own reports. The mystery sniper shot was flagged as a priority intelligence requirement, triggering investigations across multiple agencies and commands. Within hours, analysts were poring over satellite imagery, communication intercepts, and movement logs, trying to identify the source of the unexplained sniper fire. The precision of the shot and the apparent elimination of a known terrorist target suggested the work of a highly skilled operator. But the lack of coordination raised concerns about potential rogue operations or unknown actors in the theater. Maria finished her equipment maintenance and headed to the mess hall for dinner, unaware that her successful mission had become the center of a growing mystery. As far as she knew, everything had gone according to plan. The target was eliminated, she had extracted safely, and the mission remained classified as intended. But in the complex world of special operations, where multiple units often operated in the same areas without full knowledge of each other's activities, Maria's perfectly executed mission had inadvertently created one of the most puzzling intelligence mysteries of the Iraq conflict. The SEAL team's report would soon reach the highest levels of command, triggering a search for a ghost sniper who seemed to appear and disappear like a phantom in the desert. The briefing room at Naval Special Warfare Command buzzed with tension as Lieutenant Commander presented his team's report to a gathering of senior officers. Admiral Hawkins, the commanding officer of all SEAL operations in the region, studied the tactical map with a furrowed brow while intelligence analysts shuffled through satellite photographs and communication intercepts. "Let me understand this correctly," Admiral Hawkins said, her voice carrying the authority of 25 years in special operations. "Your team observed a precision sniper engagement from 12 kilometers away. The target was a known terrorist bomb maker, and there are no coalition forces on record operating in that sector." "That's correct, Admiral. The shot was textbook perfect. Single round, immediate target elimination, no follow-up shots needed. Whoever made that shot knows their business." Intelligence Officer Commander Sarah stepped forward with a tablet displaying satellite imagery. "We've analyzed every frame from the past 48 hours. No movement patterns suggest coalition sniper teams in that area. The closest friendly forces were teamed to the north, and a Marine patrol 40 clicks west." Admiral Hawkins studied the photographs more closely. "What about special access programs, black operations? Could this be something outside normal command channels?" "We've checked with every relevant agency," replied. "CIA, Delta Force, Army Rangers, even the British SAS units in theater. Nobody claims responsibility for this operation." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. In the tightly controlled environment of modern warfare, every bullet fired by coalition forces was supposed to be accounted for. The idea of an unknown sniper operating independently was both fascinating and deeply troubling. "There's something else," continued, highlighting a different section of the satellite imagery. "We found tire tracks leading away from a rocky outcropping approximately 850 meters from the target compound. The tracks suggest a single individual on foot moving to an extraction point. Then nothing. It's like they vanished." Chief Warrant Officer Rick, the SEAL team's senior enlisted advisor, leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral, with respect, I've been doing this for 15 years. What we're looking at is the work of a world-class sniper. The positioning, the shot placement, the extraction, it's all perfect. Too perfect for insurgent forces." Admiral Hawkins nodded thoughtfully. Throughout her career, she had encountered situations that easy explanation, but this one was particularly puzzling. The elimination of a high-value terrorist target was certainly a positive outcome, but the unknown nature of the shooter raised serious questions about operational security and force coordination. "I want a full investigation," she declared. "Work with intelligence to identify every possible coalition asset that could have been in that area. I want you to analyze the ballistics and tactics. Someone out there is operating at an elite level, and we need to know who they are." 300 kilometers away at Forward Operating Base Phoenix, Maria was conducting a routine training exercise with her Ranger unit, unaware that her successful mission had triggered a high-level investigation. She moved through the practice course with fluid precision, engaging targets at various distances while her fellow Rangers observed her technique. Sergeant First Class, Maria's spotter on numerous previous missions, shook his head in admiration as she consistently placed rounds within the 10-ring at 600 meters. "I swear, you've got some kind of supernatural connection with that rifle." I've never seen shooting like that. Maria lowered her weapon and smiled. It's just practice. Thousands of rounds, hundreds of hours of training, nothing supernatural about it. But even as she spoke, Maria felt a nagging unease. Something about yesterday's mission felt different, though she couldn't quite identify what was bothering her. The shot had been routine by her standards, the extraction had gone smoothly, and the target had been confirmed eliminated. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Captain Williams approached the training area as the exercise concluded. Report to my office when you're finished here. We need to discuss some administrative matters. Maria nodded and began packing her equipment. Administrative matters were usually mundane paperwork, equipment requisitions, training schedules. She had no reason to suspect that her commanding officer was about to deliver news that would change everything. In his office, Captain Williams closed the door and activated a white noise generator that would prevent electronic surveillance. His expression was more serious than Maria had ever seen before. I need to ask you some questions about yesterday's mission, and I need you to answer with absolute honesty. Maria felt her heart rate increase slightly. Of course, sir. Is there a problem? Did you encounter any other coalition forces during your operation? No, sir. The area was clear of friendly forces according to the mission briefing. Did you observe any other military activity in the region during your insertion, mission execution, or extraction? Negative, sir. I maintained operational security protocols throughout the entire mission. Captain Williams studied her face carefully. After 5 years of commanding special operations personnel, he had developed an ability to read people that bordered on the supernatural. Maria's responses appeared genuine, but the situation was becoming increasingly complex. I'm going to share some classified information with you, and I need your word that it doesn't leave this room. You have it, sir. Your mission yesterday has attracted attention from other units in theater. Specifically, a Navy SEAL team operating in the area reported hearing your shot and observing the aftermath. According to their report, there were no coalition forces supposed to be operating in that sector. Maria felt a cold chill run down her spine. The compartmentalized nature of special operations meant that units often worked in the same areas without knowledge of each other's activities. But this sounded more serious than a simple coordination oversight. Sir, my mission was properly authorized through normal channels. I have the paperwork and approval signatures. I know you do, and that's what makes this situation so interesting. According to the Navy's operational logs, no coalition forces were supposed to be in that area. But according to our logs, you were exactly where you were supposed to be. The implications hit Maria like a physical blow. Someone, somewhere in the chain of command, had made an error that created a significant operational security breach. Either her mission had been improperly coordinated, or someone was operating outside normal channels. What does this mean for me, sir? Captain Williams leaned back in his chair. For now, it means you continue your regular duties while this gets sorted out at higher levels. But I want you to be aware that you're about to become the subject of a very high-level investigation. Meanwhile, at Naval Special Warfare Command, the investigation was expanding rapidly. Admiral Hawkins had authorized the creation of a joint task force combining Navy intelligence, Army special operations, and CIA analysts. The mystery sniper had become a priority 1 intelligence requirement. Commander had spent the past 12 hours poring over operational logs from every coalition unit in Iraq. The level of detail required was staggering. Every patrol, every mission, every movement had to be cross-referenced, and what she was discovering raised more questions than it answered. Admiral, we have a problem, announced as she entered Hawkins' office with a stack of classified folders. I've found discrepancies in the operational coordination logs. Admiral Hawkins looked up from her own analysis. What kind of discrepancies? The kind that suggest either a massive failure in coordination or someone operating outside normal command structures. Look at this. Spread several documents across the desk. Naval operations shows no coalition forces in Sector 77. Army operations shows a classified Ranger mission in the same sector at the same time. That's impossible. All special operations are coordinated through Joint Command. There's no way a Ranger mission could be authorized without naval intelligence being. That's what I thought too, but I've triple-checked the documentation. Everything appears legitimate on both sides. Admiral Hawkins studied the papers with growing concern. In her experience, when official records contradicted each other this dramatically, it usually indicated either a serious security breach or the existence of operations that were being conducted outside normal oversight. Get me a secure line to General at Army Special Operations Command. We need to have a conversation about operational coordination. The phone call that followed would later be classified as one of the most tense exchanges between senior military commanders in recent memory. Both Admiral Hawkins and General were certain that their respective units had followed proper procedures, but the evidence suggested that somewhere in the system, a critical error had occurred. General, according to my intelligence officer, your people authorized a Ranger sniper mission in Sector 77 yesterday morning. Is that correct? That's classified information, Admiral, but yes, we had an authorized operation in that area. High-value target elimination. Mission was successful with no casualties. Then perhaps you can explain why my SEAL team was conducting surveillance in the same area, with no knowledge of your operation. The silence that followed lasted nearly 30 seconds. General was reviewing his own operational logs while Admiral Hawkins waited for an explanation that seemed increasingly unlikely to satisfy either of them. Admiral, our mission was properly coordinated through Joint Command. If your people weren't, then someone in the coordination chain dropped the ball. I've had my best intelligence analysts checking the coordination logs for the past 6 hours. According to our records, no Army operations were scheduled for that sector. Both commanders realized simultaneously that they were dealing with something far more complex than a simple administrative error. The level of detail required to coordinate special operations made such mistakes virtually impossible under normal circumstances. I think we need to meet in person, General suggested. This conversation requires a higher level of security than we can maintain over communications. Agreed, my headquarters, 1400 hours today. Bring your operational files for the past week. As the conversation ended, both commanders began the process of securing their respective operational logs and preparing for what promised to be a very difficult meeting. Neither was willing to admit that their command structure might be compromised, but the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. At Forward Operating Base Phoenix, Maria continued her regular training schedule while trying to process the information Captain Williams had shared with her. She had conducted dozens of missions over 3 tours of duty, and never once had there been a question about coordination or authorization. The thought that her perfectly executed mission had somehow created an international incident was both frustrating and deeply concerning. Maria prided herself on professionalism and attention to detail. The possibility that she had unknowingly violated operational security protocols was almost worse than the idea of mission failure. As she cleaned her rifle that evening, Maria reflected on every aspect of yesterday's mission. The target identification had been positive, the shot placement had been perfect, and the extraction had gone smoothly. By every measurable standard, the mission had been a complete success. But success in special operations was measured by more than just tactical outcomes. The ability to operate without detection, maintain operational security, and coordinate with friendly forces was equally important. If her mission had somehow compromised other operations or created confusion in the intelligence community, then she had failed regardless of whether the target had been eliminated. What Maria didn't know was that her professional competence and attention to detail were about to become the center of an investigation that would eventually reach the highest levels of military command. The mystery of the unknown sniper was growing larger with each passing hour, and she was the key to solving a puzzle that threatened to expose serious flaws in special operations coordination. The secure conference room at Central Command Headquarters in Baghdad had been swept for electronic surveillance 3 times in the past hour. Admiral Hawkins sat across from General while their respective intelligence officers arranged classified documents on the polished table. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Let's start with the basics," Admiral Hawkins said, opening a folder marked with the highest security classifications. "General, I need to see your operational order for the mission in Sector 77. General nodded to his aide, Colonel Jennifer Martinez, who placed a document on the table. Mission was authorized at 3:45 hours, target package confirmed by multiple intelligence sources, execution time window between 800 and 1200 hours. Admiral Hawkins studied the paperwork carefully. Everything appeared legitimate, proper authorization signatures, detailed target analysis, clear rules of engagement. But according to her own records, the area should have been clear of all coalition forces except for SEAL Team. "This is what I don't understand," Admiral Hawkins said, producing her own operational logs. "According to Joint Coordination Protocols, any special operations mission requires notification to all service branches with assets in theater. We have no record of receiving notification for this mission." Colonel Martinez leaned forward. "Admiral, with respect, we followed standard procedures. Joint notification was sent through encrypted channels at 400 hours. If your people didn't receive it, then the problem is in the communication system, not our authorization process." Commander, Admiral Hawkins' intelligence officer, shook her head. "Colonel, I've personally reviewed every communication received in the past 72 hours. No notification was received through any channel, encrypted or otherwise." The room fell silent as both sides processed the implications. Either there was a massive failure in the communication system that connected special operations commands, or someone was providing false information. Neither possibility was acceptable. "There's something else we need to discuss," General said, his voice carrying a note of reluctance. "The sniper who conducted this mission, Staff Sergeant, she's been flagged by multiple intelligence agencies over the past 18 months. Admiral Hawkins raised an eyebrow. "Flagged for what?" "Exceptional performance. She has a success rate that's statistically improbable. 43 confirmed kills over 3 tours, average engagement distance of 743 meters, 0 mission failures. Our psychological evaluation teams have been studying her performance metrics because they're outside normal parameters." "Are you suggesting she's been compromised?" "No, Admiral. I'm suggesting she's so good at her job that she's attracted attention from people who might want to exploit her abilities. We've had 3 attempts by foreign intelligence services to make contact with members of her family back in Texas." This revelation added an entirely new dimension to the investigation. The possibility that a highly skilled American sniper had become a target for recruitment by hostile intelligence services was a nightmare scenario for special operations security. Commander pulled out another folder. "General, we need to discuss the ballistics analysis from yesterday's engagement. Our technical teams have been studying the shot placement and trajectory." She spread out several photographs showing the compound where the target had been eliminated. The shot was fired from 847 meters, with a crosswind of approximately 3 knots from the southeast. The bullet placement was perfect center mass, immediate incapacitation, no collateral damage. "That sounds consistent with training and experience," Colonel Martinez observed. "It would be, except for one detail. According to our analysis, the shot was fired from an elevated position that required the sniper to compensate for a 12-degree downward angle. That level of precision under those conditions requires computational skills that go beyond normal military training." General frowned. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that whoever made that shot had access to advanced ballistic computation tools, possibly including real-time weather data and GPS-guided range finding. Equipment that isn't standard issue for Army Rangers." Admiral Hawkins felt a chill run down her spine. If the mysterious sniper had access to technology beyond standard military issue, it raised questions about funding, support, and organizational backing that went far beyond a simple coordination error. "We need to bring in for questioning," Admiral Hawkins declared. "This has gone beyond operational coordination. We're looking at potential security breaches at the highest level." At Forward Operating Base Phoenix, Maria was completing her daily physical training when Captain Williams approached with an expression that made her stomach drop. She had been dreading this moment since their conversation in his office. "Pack your gear. You're being transferred to Baghdad for debriefing." "Sir, is this about yesterday's mission?" "This is about a lot more than yesterday's mission. You're going to be questioned by people with security clearances higher than mine. I want you to remember that you've done nothing wrong, but this situation has gotten complicated very quickly." Maria nodded, trying to maintain her composure. In the special operations community, being called to Baghdad for high-level questioning was never a good sign. It usually meant that either you had made a serious error, or you had become involved in something much bigger than a routine mission. As she packed her equipment, Maria thought about her family back in Texas. Her parents had always been proud of her military service, but they worried constantly about her safety. If this investigation became public, they would be devastated by the implications. The flight to Baghdad took 3 hours, during which Maria tried to prepare herself for what was ahead. She had been truthful with Captain Williams about every aspect of her mission, but she knew that high-level investigations often uncovered details that seemed insignificant at the time but became crucial in retrospect. Upon arrival at Central Command, Maria was escorted to a secure facility where she was processed through multiple levels of security screening. Her communications devices were secured, and she was assigned quarters in a section of the base reserved for personnel under investigation. The first formal interview took place 6 hours later in a windowless room furnished with only a metal table and 4 chairs. Admiral Hawkins and General entered together, followed by their respective intelligence officers and a court reporter whose presence made the proceedings feel more like a criminal trial than a military debriefing. "Staff Sergeant," Admiral Hawkins began, "you understand that this interview is being conducted under the authority of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and that your statements may be used in subsequent proceedings." "Yes, ma'am. I want you to describe yesterday's mission from the beginning. Start with your initial briefing and continue through your return to base." Maria took a deep breath and began recounting the events in chronological order. She described the target intelligence, the mission planning, her insertion into the operational area, the engagement itself, and her extraction. Her account was detailed and precise, consistent with her reputation for professionalism. Sergeant General interjected, "I need you to be very specific about your equipment. What rifle were you using?" "M24 sniper weapon system, sir. Customized with a Mark IV scope, bipod, and sound suppressor." "What about computational aids? Range finders, ballistic calculators, weather monitoring equipment?" Maria hesitated for a moment. "Sir, I use standard issue equipment plus a handheld GPS unit and a small weather monitor for wind speed and direction." Commander leaned forward. "Sergeant, we've analyzed the shot you made yesterday. The ballistic calculations required to achieve that level of precision under those conditions are extremely complex. How did you account for the downward angle and crosswind?" "Experience, ma'am. I've been shooting long range for over 10 years. After a while, you develop an intuitive understanding of how environmental factors affect bullet trajectory." Admiral Hawkins studied Maria's face carefully. Everything about her responses suggested honesty and competence, but the technical analysis indicated capabilities that seemed to exceed normal training. "Have you ever been approached by anyone outside your normal chain of command? Anyone who offered you equipment, training, or information that wasn't part of standard military procedures?" "No, ma'am, never." "Have you ever had contact with foreign nationals, either in theater or during your leave time in the United States?" "Only in the course of official duties, ma'am. I've had no unauthorized contact with foreign personnel." The questioning continued for 2 hours, covering every aspect of Maria's military career, her training, her family background, and her personal associations. By the end of the session, it was clear that she had either received training that wasn't reflected in her official records, or she possessed natural abilities that were truly exceptional. After Maria was escorted back to her quarters, the senior officers remained in the conference room to discuss their assessment. The evidence presented a puzzle that easy explanation. "She's either the most naturally gifted sniper I've ever encountered, or she's received training that we don't know about," Admiral Hawkins observed. "I've been thinking about the equipment question," Commander added. "What if she's not using advanced computational aids? What if she's just that good at reading environmental conditions and making instinctive adjustments?" Colonel Martinez shook her head. "The precision required for that shot goes beyond instinct. There are maybe a dozen snipers in the world capable of that level of accuracy under those conditions." "Which brings us back to the original question," General said. How did someone with skill level end up conducting an unauthorized mission in an area where my SEAL team was operating? The investigation was expanding rapidly as analysts dug deeper into operational records and communication logs. What had started as a simple coordination error was beginning to look like a systematic failure in special operations security. Meanwhile, in a small office at the Defense Intelligence Agency, analyst Captain David Park was reviewing classified communications intercepts from the past week. His assignment was to look for any foreign intelligence chatter that might be related to the mystery sniper incident. What he found sent chills down his spine. 3 separate intelligence services had been discussing unusual sniper activity in Iraq, but their reports didn't match any known coalition operations. More troubling, one of the intercepts included specific details about American sniper capabilities that should have been highly classified. Captain Park immediately flagged his findings for priority review. If foreign intelligence services had advanced knowledge of American special operations capabilities, it suggested a security breach that went far beyond a simple coordination error. The investigation that had begun with a single sniper shot was rapidly evolving into one of the most serious security reviews in recent military history. At the center of it all was a young woman from Texas who had simply been trying to do her job to the best of her abilities. As Maria lay in her quarters that night, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't help but wonder how a routine mission had turned into such a complex investigation. She had followed every procedure, maintained operational security, and achieved the mission objectives. Yet somehow, her success had created more problems than a mission failure would have. What she didn't know was that her exceptional performance had attracted attention from multiple intelligence agencies, both friendly and hostile. The investigation was no longer just about coordination failures. It was about protecting one of America's most valuable tactical assets from forces that wanted to exploit her abilities for their own purposes. The revelation from the Defense Intelligence Agency changed everything. Captain Park's discovery of foreign intelligence chatter about American sniper operations had escalated the investigation to the highest levels of national security. Within hours of his report, representatives from the CIA, NSA, and Defense Intelligence Agency had converged on Central Command Headquarters. Special Agent Tours from the CIA's Counterintelligence Division arrived at Baghdad with a team of analysts and a mandate to determine whether the United States military had a security leak that was compromising special operations. Her first priority was a comprehensive interview with Maria, but this time the questions would focus on potential foreign intelligence contacts and security vulnerabilities. Staff Sergeant, Agent Tours began, settling into the chair across from Maria in the sterile interview room. I need you to understand that this conversation has implications for national security. We have reason to believe that foreign intelligence services have been monitoring American sniper operations with unusual precision. Maria felt her heart rate increase. The implication that she might somehow be connected to foreign intelligence was both terrifying and infuriating. Ma'am, I can assure you that I have never had any unauthorized contact with foreign nationals or intelligence services. I believe you, Tours replied, her tone more sympathetic than accusatory. But sometimes people can be targeted or manipulated without their knowledge. I need you to think carefully about every interaction you've had over the past 18 months, both in theater and during your leave time. Agent Tours spread out a series of photographs on the table. These are surveillance images from various locations where foreign intelligence operatives have been observed. I want you to look at each face carefully and tell me if you recognize anyone. Maria studied the photographs methodically. Most showed middle-aged men in civilian clothing, photographed in what appeared to be public locations like airports, hotels, and restaurants. None of the faces were familiar, but something about the exercise made her deeply uncomfortable. I don't recognize any of these people, Maria said finally. What about indirect contact? Phone calls from people claiming to be journalists, researchers, or military historians. Unusual mail or packages. Anyone showing excessive interest in your family back home. Maria paused, thinking back over the past year. There was one thing that seemed odd at the time. My mother mentioned that someone had been asking questions about our family at her church. A man claiming to be writing a book about military families from small towns. Agent Tours leaned forward intently, When did this happen? About 6 months ago. My mother didn't think much of it at the time, but she mentioned it because the man seemed to know details about my military service that weren't public. Did your mother get this person's name or contact information? I don't think so. She said he seemed legitimate, but something about his questions made her uncomfortable. She asked the church secretary about him, but nobody else remembered seeing him. Agent Torres made notes while exchanging glances with Admiral Hawkins and General. The pattern was becoming clearer. Foreign intelligence services were conducting surveillance and information-gathering operations, targeting American Special Operations personnel and their families. I need you to contact your mother today and get every detail she can remember about this encounter. Names, descriptions, specific questions that were asked. Everything. The phone call to Texas took place under the supervision of NSA communications specialists who could trace and analyze every aspect of the connection. Maria's mother was understandably alarmed by the nature of the questions, but she provided detailed information about the encounter at her church. He was about 50 years old, well-dressed, spoke with what might have been a slight accent, explained. He said he was writing a book about how military families cope with deployment stress, but his questions were very specific about Maria's training and assignments. Agent Torres took notes while technical specialists monitored the call for any signs of electronic surveillance or intercepts. Mrs., did this man ask about any other military families in your community? Not that I know of. He seemed specifically interested in Maria. He knew she was a sniper, which surprised me because we don't talk about her job details publicly. After the call ended, Agent Torres convened an emergency session with the senior military commanders. The evidence was pointing toward a sophisticated foreign intelligence operation that had been targeting Maria specifically, rather than conducting broad surveillance of American special operations. The pattern is consistent with Russian or Chinese intelligence methodologies, Torres explained. They identify high-value targets through analysis of operational patterns, then conduct background investigations to look for recruitment opportunities or operational intelligence. Admiral Hawkins studied the accumulated evidence. So you're saying was specifically targeted because of her exceptional performance record? That's exactly what I'm saying. Her success rate and operational capabilities make her a priority target for hostile intelligence services. They want to understand how she achieves such consistent results, and they're willing to investigate her personal life to find leverage points. The realization that Maria had been the target of foreign intelligence surveillance added a new dimension to the coordination failures that had triggered the investigation. If hostile services were monitoring American special operations, they might have advanced knowledge of mission planning and execution. General voiced what everyone was thinking. If they knew about capabilities and operational patterns, could they have anticipated her mission yesterday? It's possible, Torres replied, which would explain why there was confusion about operational coordination. If foreign intelligence was tracking her movements, they might have interfered with communication systems or fed false information to create operational conflicts. Commander pulled out a laptop and began accessing classified communication logs. If that's the case, we should be able to find evidence of electronic warfare or signal interference during the time period around mission. The analysis that followed revealed disturbing patterns in the communication records. At precisely the time when joint notification about Maria's mission should have been transmitted to Naval Special Warfare Command, there had been unusual activity on the encrypted communication channels. Look at this, said, pointing to anomalous signal patterns on her screen. There was a burst of electronic interference on our secure channels between 400 and 4:30 hours yesterday. It lasted exactly long enough to prevent the mission notification from reaching its intended recipients. Admiral Hawkins felt the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. SO's mission was properly authorized and coordinated, but foreign intelligence services interfered with the communication system to create confusion and operational conflicts. That's our working theory, Agent Torres confirmed. They wanted to create a situation where exceptional performance would attract investigation and scrutiny. The goal might have been to expose her identity and capabilities to make her more vulnerable to recruitment or elimination. The implications were staggering. Foreign intelligence services had successfully manipulated American military communications to create a security crisis that could have compromised one of the most effective special operations assets in theater. Maria listened to this explanation with growing anger and disbelief. The idea that her professional competence had made her a target for foreign manipulation was both personally offensive and deeply troubling from a security perspective. "Ma'am," Maria said, addressing Agent Torres directly, "what does this mean for my ability to continue my mission here? If I'm being targeted by hostile intelligence, am I a liability to my unit?" "That's a decision that will be made at levels above my authority," Torres replied. "But I can tell you that your value as an operational asset far exceeds the security risks. The question is how to protect you while maintaining your effectiveness." Over the next several hours, a plan began to emerge that would address both the security concerns and the operational requirements. Maria would continue her duties, but with enhanced counter-surveillance support and modified operational procedures designed to make foreign intelligence tracking more difficult. Lieutenant Commander's SEAL team would be briefed on the situation and integrated into a new coordination protocol that included real-time communication verification and electronic warfare countermeasures. The goal was to prevent future interference with operational coordination while maintaining the security of special operations assets. The investigation had revealed serious vulnerabilities in special operations security, but it had also demonstrated the resilience and effectiveness of American military personnel when faced with sophisticated threats. Maria's exceptional performance had attracted hostile attention, but it had also triggered improvements in operational security that would benefit all special operations units. As the briefings concluded and new procedures were implemented, Maria reflected on how dramatically her situation had changed in just a few days. What had started as a routine mission had become a complex international incident involving multiple intelligence agencies and senior military commanders. But perhaps most importantly, the investigation had revealed that her exceptional abilities were not just valuable to American forces, they were threatening enough to hostile intelligence services that extraordinary efforts were being made to compromise her effectiveness. In a strange way, this was the highest compliment her professional skills could receive. The mystery of the uncoordinated sniper shot had been solved, but the solutions raised new questions about the ongoing conflict between American special operations and the sophisticated intelligence services that opposed them. Maria had become a symbol of both the capabilities and vulnerabilities that defined modern warfare. As she prepared to return to operational duties with new security protocols and enhanced support, Maria knew that her role in the conflict had fundamentally changed. She was no longer just a sniper conducting tactical missions. She had become a strategic asset whose protection and effectiveness were matters of national security. The desert that had seemed so vast and empty during her solo mission now felt like a complex battlefield, where intelligence services maneuvered against each other using electronic warfare, surveillance, and deception. But Maria was confident that with proper support and coordination, American forces could maintain their tactical advantages while adapting to the evolving threats they faced. The investigation that had started with a single rifle shot echoing across the sand dunes had revealed the hidden dimensions of modern warfare, where exceptional individual performance could trigger international incidents, and where the line between tactical success and strategic vulnerability was increasingly difficult to define. 6 months after the investigation that had turned her world upside down, Staff Sergeant Maria found herself in a completely different kind of mission environment. Instead of operating as a lone sniper, she now worked as part of an integrated team that included electronic warfare specialists, counter-surveillance experts, and a dedicated communication security unit. The changes had been dramatic but effective. Foreign intelligence services had quickly discovered that their previous surveillance and interference techniques were no longer working. American Special Operations had adapted their procedures to include real-time verification of all communications, encrypted backup channels, and counterintelligence sweeps before every major operation. Maria adjusted her position on the rocky outcropping overlooking a valley in eastern Afghanistan, where intelligence indicated another high-value target would be meeting with terrorist financing contacts. But this time, she wasn't alone in the vast landscape. 3 kilometers to her north, Lieutenant Commander SEAL Team provided overwatch and communication relay. 2 kilometers to her south, an electronic warfare team monitored all communication frequencies and provided active countermeasures against potential interference. Overwatch, this is Ghost, Maria whispered into her encrypted communication system, using the new call sign that had been assigned to protect her identity. Target area is quiet, no movement observed. Copy, Ghost, came's reply. Electronic sweep shows all clear, no hostile surveillance detected. The difference in operational confidence was remarkable. Where Maria had once operated with the constant uncertainty about whether her communications were secure or her position had been compromised, she now functioned as part of an integrated system designed to counter sophisticated intelligence threats. Captain Williams had been promoted to major and assigned as the commanding officer of the new Joint Special Operations Security Unit, a command structure created specifically to address the vulnerabilities that Maria's case had exposed. The unit combined personnel from Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Air Force Special Operations, and Marine Force Reconnaissance into teams capable of operating in contested electronic environments. The incident taught us that individual excellence can become a strategic vulnerability if we don't adapt our support structures, Major Williams had explained during the unit's formation briefing. We're not trying to make our operators less effective. We're trying to make our enemies less able to exploit that effectiveness. Through her scope, Maria watched a convoy of vehicles approaching the target compound. The intelligence package for this mission had been developed through a completely new process that included multiple verification sources and real-time analysis to detect potential deception operations. Ghost, this is Sky Eye, came a voice from the aerial surveillance team. Convoy matches intelligence parameters, 3 vehicles, estimated 6 personnel. Copy, Sky Eye, I have visual confirmation. The target emerged from the middle vehicle exactly as intelligence had predicted, but Maria no longer felt the isolation and uncertainty that had characterized her previous operations. Instead, she operated with the confidence that comes from being part of a well-coordinated team with multiple layers of security and support. The shot, when it came, was as precise as any Maria had ever made, but the aftermath was completely different from her solo mission 6 months earlier. Instead of immediate extraction under uncertain conditions, she remained in position while the integrated team conducted a systematic assessment of the operational area. Target confirmed eliminated, reported from his observation position. No immediate threat detected, area appears secure. Electronic environment remains clean, added the warfare specialist. No hostile interference or surveillance signatures. The extraction proceeded according to a carefully rehearsed plan that included multiple backup options and real-time threat assessment. Maria reached the helicopter landing zone with the confidence that every aspect of the operation had been monitored and secured. Back at the Joint Operations Base, the post-mission briefing included representatives from multiple intelligence agencies who had been tracking foreign intelligence interest in American sniper operations. Agent Torres, who had become a permanent liaison to the special operations community, presented the latest assessment of hostile intelligence activities. Foreign services have largely given up on targeting individual operators, Torres reported. Our improved operational security and integrated team structures have made their previous approaches ineffective. They're shifting to broader surveillance of communication networks and supply chains. Admiral Hawkins, who now commanded the entire Joint Special Operations Security Program, nodded approvingly. The case taught us that exceptional individual performance requires exceptional institutional support. We've built that support structure, and the results speak for themselves. General had been promoted to command all Army Special Operations in the Middle East Theater. His experience with the initial investigation had convinced him that the future of special operations lay in integrated team structures that could adapt rapidly to evolving threats. 6 months ago, we had a coordination failure that could have compromised our most effective sniper, General observed. Today, that same sniper operates as part of a team structure that foreign intelligence can't penetrate or predict. That's the kind of adaptation that wins long-term conflicts. For Maria, the transformation had been both challenging and rewarding. She had initially worried that the additional security measures and team coordination would limit her operational effectiveness, but the opposite had proven true. With better intelligence, secure communications, and integrated support, her success rate had actually improved while her exposure to foreign intelligence had been virtually eliminated. The technical improvements had been equally impressive. Maria now used advanced ballistic computation systems that could account for real-time weather data, GPS-precise range finding, and even seismic activity that might affect bullet trajectory. But more importantly, she operated with the confidence that her communications were secure and her position was protected by multiple layers of counter-surveillance. The irony, Maria reflected during a quiet moment between missions, is that foreign intelligence services trying to exploit my abilities actually forced us to develop capabilities that make me more effective than I ever was operating alone. Sergeant First Class, who had remained as Maria's primary spotter throughout the reorganization, had adapted well to the new team structures. "It's like having a superpower," he observed. "We know exactly what the enemy is trying to do, we have real-time intelligence about their capabilities, and we operate with backup systems that make mission failure almost impossible." The broader implications of the case had extended far beyond special operations. Military communication security, intelligence coordination, and counter-surveillance protocols had been upgraded across all service branches. The investigation that had started with a single confused SEAL team had triggered the most comprehensive review of operational security since the beginning of the war on terrorism. Congressional oversight committees had been briefed on the case as an example of how sophisticated foreign intelligence operations posed new challenges to American military effectiveness. But they had also been shown how rapid adaptation and institutional learning could turn potential vulnerabilities into strategic advantages. The case demonstrates both the threats we face and our ability to overcome them, Admiral Hawkins had before Congress. Foreign intelligence services are constantly probing for weaknesses in our operations, but our personnel and institutions have proven capable of adapting faster than our enemies can exploit vulnerabilities. The personal impact on Maria and her family had also been significant. Her parents had been relocated to a more secure community and provided with enhanced personal security training. Her mother had become an advocate for military families dealing with security concerns, speaking at conferences about the hidden challenges faced by families of special operations personnel. "I never realized that Maria's success would make our entire family a target," had said in one presentation. "But I also never realized how quickly and effectively our military could adapt to protect us. The support we've received has been incredible." As Maria prepared for her next mission, she reflected on the journey that had taken her from a solo operator conducting routine missions to a central figure in a revolutionary approach to special operations security. The single rifle shot that had echoed across the desert 6 months earlier had triggered changes that would protect American special operations personnel for years to come. The desert landscape looked the same as it had during her original mission, but Maria's role in it had been fundamentally transformed. She was no longer just a skilled individual operating in isolation, but rather a key component of an integrated system designed to maintain American tactical superiority while countering sophisticated foreign intelligence threats. The mystery of the uncoordinated sniper shot had been solved, but the solutions had created new capabilities that extended far beyond the original problem. Maria had become both the symbol and the beneficiary of American military adaptation to 21st century warfare, where individual excellence and institutional support combined to create capabilities that no enemy could predict or counter. As her helicopter lifted off for the next mission, Maria looked down at the desert that had been the setting for so much drama and transformation. The sand dunes that had witnessed a single perfect shot now stretched beneath a complex network of surveillance, communication, and security systems that represented the future of special operations. The young woman from Texas who had simply wanted to serve her country with distinction had unknowingly triggered a revolution in military operational security. But more importantly, she had proven that American military personnel and institutions could adapt to any challenge and emerge stronger than before. The echo of that single rifle shot would resonate through special operations doctrine for generations to come.